In today's video, we dive into a story that's a mix of technology, wildlife conservation, and a programmer's nightmare turned real. Discover how a simple coding error led to a series of events that had the Indian government tracking down tigers, all because of a GPS collar mishap. This wasn't today. At the urging of several Redditors over several months, I present one of my greatest fuck-ups. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I was hired to get the code for a company under control. They made GPS tracking collars for animals. Everything had grown organically, and so as an engineer, they figured that I could get an organized codebase installed. I'd been programming since I was 8 years old, and with fresh training, they figured I would be ideal for getting organized, clean code. I didn't know how to program in C, but I learned. I got a book and read up on the ideas and constraints. I learned about registers and bitwise manipulation and all the rest. Eventually, I even got to the point where I was able to work out a bug between the chip manufacturer and the chip burner manufacturer to get the registers moved. That solved a global bug, so if you ever used a 10F20X with a QuickWriter and it worked, you're welcome. I also made the code modular, so when parts changes I could just use a different include, and it would work just fine. This was instrumental when the memory war ended. You may not know this, but before Flash there were other architectures. We used CPROM, and we ordered literally the last 300 CPROM chips in the world to tide us over. They didn't have dies in them, so they were just dummies. Hey NSA, can you fix this? I could. We found a pin-compatible Flash replacement, and I had already started on the skeleton, so 3 days later, we had Flash compatibility and we were good to go forever. I also didn't know how to deploy a repository, so I read up on CVSNT and Tortoise and put those into place and made sure it all got backed up regularly. CVS and WinMerge saved my butt so many times, I feel like I owe the writers each a nice bottle of scotch. Anyway, one of the constraints with embedded code is your footprint. On a desktop, who gives a shit how much code you write? Are you at a gig? 40 gigs? Fuck it. It compiles. Ship it. Not so in embedded. One of the chips I used had 24 bytes of RAM and 512 bytes of flash. No registers. No, I didn't forget a prefix. Bytes. I figured out a tip for using pointers to shrink the code footprint down from 99% to 92%, meaning we could add more features. If I overused it, the footprint went up again, so it required some trial and error. Time of day, satellite site checks, seasonal changes, all kinds of stuff. When I rewrote the GPS parsing library to use pointers, I missed a pipe. Fuck. It was supposed to look something like this. GPS.longitude equals RS232 long degrees 10s, GPS.longitude and GT4. GPS.longitude equals RS232 longitude degrees 1s. But I fucked up the pipe, so it was GPS.longitude equals RS232 longitude degrees 1s. So the 10th digit of longitude was always 0, meaning that there was a 400-mile wide swath it could have been at. It got through so many tests, and even to a test customer who, goddamn him, happened to live where that data was actually valid. The screenshot even made it into the fucking manual where it could mock me. It wasn't until I rewrote the VB parsing program to deal with leading zeros that we noticed the problem in all its motherfucking majesty. I found out what was going on when I got a call from a coyote researcher in Rhode Island. She asked why the coyotes were always on the highway. Well, that's because it likely has a clean line of sight to the sky. I shit you not, there's a highway right on the zeros in Rhode Island. Okay, she asks, then why are they also in the middle of the ocean? I answered, coyotes don't rent speedboats, do they? For the record, they do not. When I saw the bug, I knew exactly what I'd fucked up. I said something to the customer when I saw it. I have to go. I see what I did wrong. It wasn't a maybe thing. It was immediately obvious. Maybe if I'd paid more attention. Maybe if my now ex-wife's pregnancy wasn't complicated and we'd been wondering if a late-term abortion was required to save her life. The kid in question is now 9, and the ex is quite happy with her new partner. Maybe if I'd had more experience. But no, none of those maybes were true, and I'd fucked it up. All by myself. We'd sent 100 collars to the government of India to eventually get every tiger in the world fitted with a collar. Their goal was to find every poacher and murder them. They deserved it, frankly. But no, I fucked it up. The government of China wanted collars for Hangul's deer to see if they'd work for pandas too. But no, I fucked it up. The company went out of the animal tracking side because there was more money to be made in tracking people. Less customization as well, since the manufacturers, Microchip, would program an incremental ID number into the chip for 37 a chip when you bought a reel. That was a lot less than I was being paid, so they went in a new direction. One without me. The CEO brought in an independent auditor, so see if I was sabotaging the code on purpose. And instead, I got a reference and a quote saying my code is better than most. I'm proud of that human tracking code. It was solid, and the way I wrote it cut down on the code base from 10K plus versions down to 2, one of which was deprecated. Eventually, the tech was sold to LoJack. I ran into a person wearing a wrist tracker at a party, and it was still running after 10 years, only requiring battery changes. That code is the brains behind the Project Lifesaver transmitters, and that project has saved thousands of lives. The real thanks for that belong to the people who go out looking for the people who go wandering. I found out years later that most of the collars that got sent out worked awesome. Crocodiles, wolverines, dolphins, whales, even some torpedoes. It was a bad batch of about 50 that had the shitty code. It was patchable, but only with power tools and physical contact. Those with bad data could not be fixed after the fact, but was useful anyway. So in order to fix the collars, the CEO of the company went to India to meet with the government officials to reprogram the firmware in tranquilized tigers. From what I understand, the tigers did survive, and the data was eventually used to track some poachers who, let's be diplomatic and say they fared worse than the tigers. Alright, I'm going to karaoke. Good night. Well, that's a wrap on our wild story for today. If you're curious about the aftermath, or have your own tale of GPS gone wrong, drop us a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that take unexpected turns. Goodbye for now,